What's up, guys? Tsmmaa here with the first guide of Set 5. This guide titled Set 5 Guide for Dummies, where we help you not only read out the traits, but provide a TLDR and tips to maximize the origins and classes. Today we'll be talking about Origins Edition, and today I will have Cotton help me present these origins to you guys. Hey, Cotton.
Hello guys, Cottontail here. I'm here with my boy John from Six, or Small, as I like to call him. As he said, we're here to introduce you Origins. It's gonna be really fun. There's a lot of good new units to check out, a lot of good comps. So yeah, look forward to it.
Cool. Let's go to the first origin. The first origin we have here is the Forgotten origin. Forgotten champions have a bonus health and damage, attack damage for each shadow item worn by a Forgotten champion. Increases the bonus by 10% on all Forgotten champions, stacking up to 5 times. The TLTR is there are a mix of warlords and cybers. And one tip I could provide is the shadow items are essential to this comp as it would provide stacks for each unit. In the Forgotten trait, we have Rise, Draven, Viego, Warwick, Vayne, Victor, Hecarim, Thresh, and Katarina. What do you think about this, Godin?
Yeah, well, depending on the shadow item, these Forgotten champions look very consistent in damage. It looks like there's a lot of carries, as in Rise, Draven. But the Forgotten champions, until we know what the shadow item really does, if it's just an item that you buy, if it's just an extra item that's put into the game, or an item that comes with them, and probably the skills, you can get a lot of them on your hands. You're probably gonna have a really strong comp.
Sounds interesting. We'll just have to wait and see what these shadow items have in for us.
So here we have Nightbringers. Nightbringers gain a Legain shield equal to a percent of their maximum health the first time they drop below 50%. When the shield is applied, the Nightbringer gains 35% bonus damage. The Nightbringer champions are Sejuani, Morgana, Yasuo, Vladimir, Lee Sin, uh, Diana, Aphelios, and Darius. So as we can see here, the Nightbringers, you could compare them to the item in League as in Steric's Gauge, where they drop a certain amount of health, they gain a big shield, and it just makes them like very tanky. It's very good against burst. I think it's like a divine, but without the cleansing of CC. So if you see there's probably mages, you're against mages, a lot of magical damage, that burst you. This will be really good to fit into your comp.
Agreed. I think some notable units that you want to see in these comps as primary carries are the Diana and the Aphelios. Of course, the God King Darius, but we could talk about him later. Coven. So this Coven origin, at the start of combat, the champions nearest to the center of your Coven champions is chosen as the Coven leader, gaining 50% bonus ability power. And each time a Coven ability unit casts an ability, a fraction of the cost is bestowed upon the Coven leader as mana. So the TLDR is it's a mix of mech and Star Guardian mana sharing. So some tips is during PB you want to try and perfect your triangle building or your straight line building, as the Coven leader will probably want the boost of ability power. But yeah, seriously, you want to surround your main carry with these Coven champions. Cotton, I think this is going to be a really good trait. What are your first impressions on this?
I think this trait is very flexible, as in like since your Coven leader gets a bunch of ability power, you might not need to build a lot of ability power on your main carry. You could probably make him tankier, or you could just go flat out full raw power and just make him glass cannon. It'll do a lot of damage, or put a lot of sustain in him. The only downside to this comp is probably positioning. You have to clump up your units, and there's a lot of CC on next set, and this is something that you could take advantage of. So yeah, it looks good so far.
For sure.
So we have Hellion here. Hellion gains attack speed. Whenever a Hellion dies, an imperfect Doppel Hellion of the same type will leave from the Hellion portal and join the fight. The Hellion units are Lulu, Cannon, Ziggs, Kled, Poppy, and Teemo. This is a very new concept, something I would have never thought they'd bring out to the game. It actually looks really buggy, by the way. But so your units have a second life. Basically, they come out weaker versions. They probably cast again, so that would be really strong. These are probably really strong early game units, and I think they're cheap as well too. So you could also reroll them if you want. Maybe the units double Hellion will scale based off like the level. We're not sure yet, but this is like you compare this to cultists. You know, very strong early game. They have a lot of units on the board, and yeah.
Yeah, for sure. We really are interested in what this idea of imperfect Doppler Hellions are. Maybe their abilities are half as strong, half as long, half as like effective, but this is pretty exciting. This could be the next cultist or the next degen reroll comp, whatever that could be for us. Um, Dragon Slayers. So Dragon Slayers include Pantheon, Mordekaiser, Diana, and Trundle, and Dragon Slayers gain bonus ability power after the first ally Dragon Slayer scores a takedown. So any touches on enemy with at least 1400 maximum health each combat, all allies, including non-Dragon Slayer allies, gain additional ability power for the remainder of combat. So the TLDR is, it's a new concept, so you want to burst early the 1400 enemy units to gain a super big power spike for the rest of the fights. And some tips is like similar to Vagar, you want to get your Dragon Slayers to get the touch on the 1400 and score that takedown early on in the fight. So later on, you can have your rest of your team have an increased ability power. Who do you think can fully excel this trait, Cotton, based on these units?
So Giant Slayer here is very interesting, as in like they look very strong late game because a lot of units early game will have the HP threshold for Giant Slayers to get that buff. I wouldn't recommend using Giant Slayer early, but you know in the later games they're going to be really strong. They're going to be very consistent because everyone is going to have items on them. Everyone's going to have there's going to be 2-star or even 3-star, and it'll just be really easy for your Giant Slayer team to get the buff. I think this is like a counter to monstrosity, which is something we'll go over later. Because they get to summon a giant golem.
True, I
Like,
didn't think about that, but monstrosity is definitely a target for these dragon slayers. Oh, look what we have here.
so here we have what I was talking about: abomination. Abominations empower the creation. Monstrosity is stronger with every champion death, getting a percent of the dying champion's maximum health. Upon reaching peak strength, or when no allied abomination champions remain, the monstrosity will be unleashed. So this is another new concept. This is probably the Galio of set 5, except all your units need to die, or your abomination units need to die for it to be unleashed. We don't know how strong it will be. We don't know how it scales, but this is something that Giant Slayers look forward to, especially to get their buff around going. Uh, but I think if you get them early, you'll win a lot of fights. The trait sounds really strong. You know, there's a lot of reviving units like Hellion and Abomination. So yeah, it looks very interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing you want to look at early is that a lot of these can be potential late game carries, Callista being a 1 cost to Rise being a 4 cost. So the variables and the variation in this abomination trait really makes it interesting in how you really want to roll or when you really want to roll in general. And what is even the monstrosity? I hope it's a good surprise. So the next origin we're going to be looking at is redeemed. Redeemed have increased armor, magic resist, and ability power. When they die, they pass on the bonus splits among the other allied or redeemed. So the TLDR, it's the Dark Star, the Dragon Soul, or the Light, even if you guys know what that is. Some tips for this is um, everyone starts with armor and magic resist. Just as your units die, they spread it out, and usually you want to keep your carry safe to the end, as they will collect all the redeemed stacks and have basically a lot of increased armor, magic resist, and ability power. So we have Varus, Leona, Lux, Syndra, and Aatrox, Rel, Kale, and Vel'Koz. So Vel'Koz being 4 cost, Rel being 4 cost, Kale being a 5 cost. What do you think about this origin, Cotton?
I think other than the 4 cost and the 5 cost units, I feel like Redeem is a very consistent early game comp or mid game comp. It would be really good to pivot and transition. Thus, they won't take bad losses. They have good scaling on them. They have good sustain. So with enough DPS, you could probably save a lot of HP mid game. I think it's a good trade to have because the early game units don't look as strong, but the trade is just as strong for them to be worth it. And these carries, to reach Kale, to reach Vel'Koz, Rel, I feel like you need time, and that's what Redeem does for you. It gives you time.
For sure. Excited to see what Vel'Koz does again. Hopefully becoming that hyper carry laser. So we have Dawnbringers now.
So Dawnbringers, they rapidly heal percent of their maximum health the first time they drop below 50%. When this heal occurs, Dawnbringer gains 10% damage. Similar to Nightbringer, the opposite Night and Dawn. They heal, they drop, you burst them, and they gain bonus damage. It's like an animal visage. Like Divine as well, except they don't play CC as well. So this CC in this meta is definitely going to be key to beating all these region type of comps. Also, Morello having anti-heal. But looking at these champions, they don't seem as strong as the Nightbringers. The Nightbringers seem to do like more damage, but yeah, that's all I have going for now.
Yeah, for sure. Like looking at these champions, Garen, Riven, Nidalee, and Karma being the 4 costs, I'm really excited. Will she become the supportive type of character, or will she be another AP potential carry? And with Riven being back only as a 3 cost, it makes you really wonder what type of power she can bring as a Dawnbringer and in the future a Legionnaire. Something we'll introduce later on in the video. But for now, we'll talk about the Verdants. So the Verdants are champions that start combat adjacent to at least one Verdant, are immune to crowd control for the first 3 seconds of combat. The TLDR is that they give QSS and kind of act like a Karma from set 3 for 3 seconds. Some tips are Kale and Ashe will be good units to sit beside carries on the backline, while Taric can provide duo frontline QSS for any crowd control that can happen in the front line. This 3 seconds of QSS, do you think it'll really make a big deal, Cotton?
3 seconds of combat definitely do matter. Depends on how much damage your carry has. I think it's very important to get as much DPS out against us very heavy sustained champions. You just get their abilities popping right away, because it seems like it could be very troublesome in the long fights. It looks like 2 slots are always going to be occupied to have Verdant up. I'm not sure how many you need, but I'm pretty sure it's just Taric +1, either Ashe or Kale. So this also allows you to build triple damage carry, which is very strong. It's always been really strong in TFT. The problem is, that crowd control exists. But with Verdant, obviously that's out of the picture for at least the first 3 seconds. And I think it's a really good introduction to the game. It might be, I don't think it's that strong because it's only 3 seconds. I think they put a lot of thought into it, because if it was at least 4 seconds, I'm pretty sure it would be way too much. But it also depends on how much impact their ultimates have based on Ashe or Kale. Yeah.
For sure. I think the 3 seconds will be kind of worrisome and will probably be adjusted throughout PvE, but looking forward to this trait. Draconic. Cotton, what do you think?
So Dragonic is the fortune, set 5. At 3 Dragonic, we have at the end of each player combat, gain a Dragon Egg on your bench. Dragon Eggs hatch into a Draconic champion after 3 rounds. And for 5 Draconic, we have Dragon Eggs are golden. Golden Eggs can hatch into rare loot. So it looks like the eggs will give you a champion. I'm not sure if they give you one from the shop. There might be new champions that you can't even get from the shop. And 5 Dragon Eggs, it looks like this is where the items come in, maybe, or the Nikos, or we're not sure yet. But it looks very interesting. It looks really fun. The Draconic units look really strong, as in you could run them and you won't even feel bad about them, and you can take advantage of the fortune buff. So the Draconic champions are Heimerdinger, Syra, Ash, Udyr, and Set. So yeah, John, what do you think?
Yeah, I think none of these units are bad, unlike the Fortune from set 4. But I want to talk about in the first leaks video that More produced, there were two champions that aren't in this release doc, Shyvana and Aesol. If you look at the bottom right, I guess parallelogram, they both appear to be fighting alongside our allies team, and it makes me wonder that do these eggs produce champions that aren't even purchasable by the store? Only time will tell, and maybe they have extra, origins or classes that they can help boost your team by. Only time can tell, of course. Um, Now we have IronClad. IronClad, all allies gain bonus armor. Wow, difficult one. The TLDR is Vanguards, but for everyone. Some tips is just put it in against like 80 heavy lobbies, and it'll be a good time. So today we have Jax, Rel, and Nautilus. Rel the 4 cost, and the other two 2 costs. What do you think of the armor mystics, the Ironclads, Cotton?
So this is a new class that's never been in TFT before. We've had Mystic basically every set, and it's always good against magic damage because every ability is basically magic damage. So Ironclad, I feel like in this set at least, there's a lot of heavy 80 comps and a lot of long drawn out fights, and just having the bonus armor is very good for your comp. It also maybe won't force you to build armor items on your champions. Noticeably like GA, Bramble, and this is stuff that you could prioritize other items for. I'm not sure it will be that impactful, honestly, because maybe if the units aren't strong enough, you could just get the armor item and then you run better units. But it's for the time being. We have to see.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe it's underwhelming. Maybe it's overtuned. Once we see the numbers, we'll get back to you. So now we have Kindred's trait, the Eternal. Kindred deploys a lamb and wolf separately, each with their own abilities and gaining the effects of Kindred's items. So the TLTR is Kindred goes Shadow Clone Jitsu with her items and provides a consistent double DPS maybe. So some tips for this is to stack a lot of items on Kindred and play around her ability and how strong your front line is relative. Cotton, how do you feel about this 5 cost Ranger beast about to come to TFT?
I feel like this is the consistency we need in a legendary for a ranger. It's nothing like gimmicky. It doesn't have like a revive thing. It doesn't like dodge or like CC or something like that. Like Kaisa in the past is very scary. Or like Samira where she gets going, she just destroys your whole team. I feel like you just have to play good frontline and backline, or Assassin would be really good against Kindred. It obviously has certain weaknesses, but it doesn't look as broken. It looks consistent. It doesn't look like a bouncing nightmare. And maybe if she does become a bouncing nightmare, you could just reduce the amount of percentage she gets from items. But I like it. I like it a lot. You could run 3 damage items, and if one Kindred dies, then you have another one to back it up. So we're chilling.
Yeah, talking about having a backup, the Revenants. What do you think?
So Revenant survived their first death each combat. Once survived, they take and deal 30% increased damage. TLDR, there's Jace for everyone. The Revenants being ivern, volibear.
Nocturne.
Is that Kha'Zix?
Nocturne.
So, my
Mo.
bad.
It's okay.
But so yeah, this is this revive mechanic. I feel like other than just reviving your carry, this changes a lot for like a team fight because based on positioning, it looks like so it's volley and nocturne and melee. They could just instantly die. Your whole team will walk forward, and then have access to your backline. It's very scary. This is why J was such a strong item. Not only that, but it's a good peel against assassins. It's also going to be, I think, at the highest level, it's going to be really interesting to play around. Because sometimes you want your guy to die right away, or maybe you want him to be revived later in the fights. Who knows?
Yeah.
But it'll be squishy for sure after revive. But there's also a lot of resistances to set. IronClad, Mystics, but we'll see.
The one I'm looking out for is the 4-cost ivern. It's really odd because you don't really like to put GA on a lot of support units, but with this 4-cost ivern getting a free GA, who knows? Maybe the come up of rapid fire cannon ivern, might come up with this one. So that's all we have for origins for now. Check out part 2 of this video where me and Cotton talk about the classes right there.